We are here with Labour spokesperson for disability issues, Priyanka Krishnan, and we're here to talk about the year that was. So, Priyanka, how have you been, and how are you doing? First of all,
Kia ora, korua. Thanks, Blake and Paul, for having me on the show, on the podcast. I'm doing all right. Probably not in the best of health at the moment, but onwards and upwards, right? It's been quite the year, though, so really looking forward to getting into it with both of you.
Have you had a highlight of the year?
Gosh, a highlight of the year. I think it's been, to be quite honest, it's been sort of working alongside disability communities across the country. I've been quite privileged to meet some incredible people, both of you included. I met you both this year. And just to
Mm.
see the fight that, exists within our disability communities, literally up and down the length and breadth of our nation. And that has been incredibly inspiring to see.
so what's it like? Can you give us a perspective of what it's like in the parliament? So we see you guys do your debates on television. So what's it been like trying to get Louise to listen to you this year?
Well, it's been pretty frustrating to be completely honest. So I guess on the 18th of March, so on the 18th of March, when the first tranche of those cuts and changes were announced via Facebook, my phone basically blew up with people trying to figure out what this was, what's going on, do you have any information? I was as much in the dark as everyone else. And personally, for me, I was going from never having been in opposition before to kind of asking a question to the minister every day for 2 weeks since. And so figuring out, the questioning strategy, what's the best way to and to get the answers that you were looking for on behalf of so many people and communities who were genuinely at sea as to what this meant for them. Um, so what's it been like? It's been quite the roller coaster ride, both personally for me figuring out opposition for the first time and trying to get those answers, but also then um, ensuring that I could meet and talk to as many people as possible who were directly impacted by the cuts and the changes, because I do feel that it's really important for me as someone who's not disabled myself to be able to amplify the voices of those who are in the debating chamber and to put their life stories and their experiences directly to the minister to get some answers. So that's kind of been my strategy in the way that I've been trying to get some of those answers. But as the year has progressed, things have become worse. And I feel that it's become even more challenging in the House to get answers. And I will also mention that it was to a question that I asked the former Minister for Disability Issues, Penny Simmons. It was in answer to a question that I asked in the House that she came out and said those horrible things about carers, and then doubled down again and said them again, and has caused so much um, anger and angst for many in the disability communities as well. So it was actually pretty difficult to stand in the chamber and hear her saying those things as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting year.
Mm. It's quite interesting that you bring that up because, we had your friend Dr. Rebecca Graham on the program yesterday, and she was saying, and I quote her saying, she felt hurt by the assertion that the ministers
Mhm.
think that they are taking advantage. So is that how you sort of felt as well?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, as I was standing in the debating chamber and listening to her say those things, it actually made me really angry. More because I have met with a number of carers. I have people in my own family who are carers, and have been before, and I just thought it was such an awful thing for her to say, And I went back into the house later to try and give her the opportunity to provide some evidence because I knew that it was causing a lot of hurt in the community. And I thought, well, at least if you've said something so ghastly, back it up. And I asked her the question again to whether she had the evidence and what it was, to give her that opportunity to clarify what she said. But really, all she did was double down. And as far as, till today, looking through OIAs and through responses in the House as well, and responses to written parliamentary questions, I don't see any evidence to what she said. So, at best, I can think that she kind of just jumped to a bunch of conclusions, but they have caused a lot of hurt to people. So I get the comment that you've referred to, Blake, and people still raise it with me. And there's never been even an apology from the national government on behalf of what one of their ministers said. So.
Go ahead, Paul, and then I'll come back.
Well, I'm kind of curious about that March 18 date. Doing a lot of the recording stuff that we've been doing for Blake's show, that date comes up all the time as it for people in the community. The community kind of feels like a 9/11 moment. It's everything got taken away, everything changes, sort of shocking moment for everyone involved. I realize as opposition, you wouldn't have been given any sort of heads up on it. Any of the changes that they've announced since then, have they given you guys any warnings on? Or is it just basically being steamroll, this is what we're going to do, so sit down and take it?
Yeah, no warning whatsoever in terms of any of the changes and cuts that the government has announced. And really, I feel, given this is, a bit of a wrap-up podcast, a bit of an overview of the year as well. I actually made a bit of a timeline of the cuts that they made. I think the March 18th one and the removal of flexibility of funding. You're right. People point to it as a pivotal day if you look at the whole year, this year, I've been talking to a number of disabled people, carers, and organizations that support our disability communities across the country since then. And people tell me that literally their life changed and was turned upside down overnight. They got no warning of this. And many of them found out about this incredibly significant change through a Facebook post. So altogether, it was both a slap in the face, but practically has made such a difference and a negative difference for people, for disabled people. And then, of course, there was all that argy-bargy in April. There was a new minister, but things only seemed to get worse. In May, people started to tell me that they were beginning to see some of the other elements of the cuts playing out in their lives. So, for example, children losing access to programs like Writing for the Disabled during school hours. That was, of course, that cut was the one that was announced on March 18th, but it started to take effect in May, and people realized even more so what they were losing out on. In August, it was another whammy with Whaikaha being gutted, enabling good lives being paused. I mean, this is, they call it a pause. It doesn't look like it's coming back anytime this term, frankly, of government. And then there was that bizarre letter that the minister sent out saying essentially that nothing would change for disabled people. And then, the guidance that was sent to organizations, that was leaked by organizations left, right, and center, that showed that there was a freeze on residential care access, a funding freeze for them as well. At that point, I went out and spoke to so many parents, mostly elderly parents who'd been working, many of them for 5 years, for their disabled adult child to get a space in a residential care home. Many were on waiting lists. To be told that overnight, the waiting lists were scrapped completely, and all that work that had gone into getting a suitable space was down the drain, and that they were back to square one. In September this year, Te Whatuora limited funding access for carers of children with severe mental health conditions. That was a Health New Zealand funding cut, but it affected a number of carers of disabled children as well. So it's been a series of cuts and changes. I know that people are just living in uncertainty, and not once were we given a heads up, Paul. So we've really, as opposition, been figuring it out with communities.
So how does it make you feel, especially now with Minister Upston being the now Minister of Disabilities keeping denying in the House that there are freezers, there are cuts, there are this, there are that, and you're constantly having to fight back and say, yes, there have been. It's clear, flashing up your papers and on and on and on and on.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's just ludicrous. And I don't, I mean, I think it's gotten to a point where the national government and Minister Upston currently is just saying one thing, so they're saying that this is not a freeze, it's not a cut or whatever, but literally no one believes her anymore. So I haven't met one person out in the community um, that is even giving her the benefit of the doubt. I think people are just so over it at the moment. I mean, I remember there were two bizarre, I guess, moments when I was asking questions in the House in August. One was immediately after that document was leaked, and I had the document with me, and I was asking about the residential care funding freeze and the access freeze. I had spoken to parents who told me their stories. I'd spoken to organizations that provided residential care that were telling me that their waiting lists were gone and they weren't able to take in people. They had, empty spaces, but they couldn't take in people off the waiting list anymore because of that arbitrary categorization that the government brought in. You can only get a residential space if you're out of a mental health unit, prison, and OT placement, and so on. So the organizations didn't have the skills to deal with the needs of people in those categories, and yet they couldn't take in people off their waiting list and had empty rooms. It just made no sense on any level. And I was asking the minister those questions. Now, Minister Upston wasn't in the House that day, and bizarrely, the national government made Penny Simmons, who had had the portfolio stripped from her, answer those questions in the House. So that itself was just so weird, and I actually thought pretty cruel of them. But she was the one who then stood up and said there is no freeze. And so I tabled the document in the House saying, basically in plain English, that there was a freeze. And because that was a document that was leaked to us and not publicly available, I was able to do that. Second occasion was to Minister Upston, again on a similar issue. I had parents of disabled children in the gallery that day. It was coincidental. I didn't know they were going to be there. And one of them emailed me right before question time saying they were coming to watch this. And again, she said, there is no freeze. I mean, it's really frustrating for me because I can't get any answers if someone just keeps saying there's no freeze. And literally, those parents got up and walked out of the gallery after that question. So it's almost gotten to a point of it being ridiculous.
then does does that make you feel more determined to, um, you know, make it a better fight for us? I've got my petition out at the moment, which had just been extended through till March. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a meeting early next year and we'll be able to do some public driving, um, and that sort of thing. Um, so does it make you more determined to fight to fix this problem along with people like me and Paul and
So basically, it makes me absolutely 100% more invested in fighting for, alongside disability communities, for the rights of disabled people. I was the minister prior to the last election, and while I held this portfolio for just about 7 months, I feel that it gave me a really good insight as to how Whaikaha operates. Of course, we set up that agency, but also what ministers can and cannot do. And so everything that I have said that ministers Simmons previously and Upston now should have done is stuff that I know I could have done if I'd been the minister. So I asked to hold on to this portfolio because we had, taken a number of steps when Labour was in government to make things fairer, to ensure that we started to progress EGL so that disabled people had more choice and control over the services they accessed. And I just wanted to keep tabs on how things panned out. I never thought it was going to blow up on March 18th. But it makes me really glad that I did get to hold on to this portfolio, and I want to keep fighting with disability communities to make things better. I want us in Labour to have a really good manifesto in the lead up to the 2026 elections so that when we are next in government, and we will be at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, we can actually hit the ground running
Yeah.
and not just repair what this government has broken, but actually make some solid progress. Now, on to your second question, which was what do I hope to see in 2025?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really don't have very high hopes for this government, given their track record in their first year of government. So really, I would just like them to not continue to decimate disability support funding. Um, and I would really, really like to see them start to engage meaningfully with disability communities in the lead up to what DSS is going to look like, and for them to lift that pause on EGL. After all, it was a national government that brought in Enabling Good Lives. And so it is particularly disheartening to see this national led coalition government decimate it. So, really, just don't do anything horrible next year and start talking properly to disabled people, carers, and organizations that support them.
Yep. Two more questions from me. So, one's a comment, and one. So, sorry, they are questions. Oh dear. So I received a statement back in August from Minister Upton, or September, one of the two. I have to figure out. I'll run that again. So I recently received a statement from Minister Upton in recent months that claims, and I quote, "This is the biggest uh, budget that we have had for disabled people in the history of any government, and we will continue to make them larger." What do you respond to that?
It's very interesting. It's very easy, and it's very misleading to say that it's the largest investment in disability support services by any government, because every government at every budget has to do that just to keep the lights on because the population grows. And that's really what ministers don't tell you. Um, and that's really what she's saying here. Yeah, it's more money technically than what was put in budget 23, which was also the largest investment at the time. But that's just because the number of disabled people accessing services increases, and so you have to increase the budget to meet their needs as well. Nothing through budget 24 has made any improvement for disabled people, carers, or the wider disability communities. I have asked the minister this very question in estimates, debates in the House and in select committee, and she's never been able to point to one new thing that they're progressing that will actually improve the lives or well-being outcomes for disabled people. So I absolutely reject that.
Okay. Two-part question to finish. So, number one, what are your hopes for this review that's about to come out next month? And what would you say to the minister to encourage her? This is the big one, to come on the program.
All right. So the first part of your question, I'll be interested to see what comes out of it. I've been hearing from a number of organisations and people that they have not been engaged with. The minister had said that there would be engagement and broad consultation for this part of the review. And I understand that has not happened. So I'm not holding my breath, frankly, because I do believe in the motto of disability communities worldwide: nothing about us without us. And if that doesn't happen, I'm not holding my breath as to what's going to come out of this review. But we'll wait and see. I'm willing to be pleasantly surprised. Um, to the second part of your question, what would I say to encourage Minister Upston to come on your show? I'll just say this. So I've been watching your podcast, the two of you, for a while now. I have been listening to the interviews you've done, and I feel that you've been very thorough in the questions that you've asked. They've been thoughtful, and you've reflected on changes that have happened and had people on here to be as fair as you can be in terms of how you present the issues. That is literally the only reason that I'm here today, because I am recovering from a major surgery. I've got a really bad cold. Um, and I'm meant to be recuperating. I'm on leave from Parliament till the end of the year because I can't fly or drive. I'm here because I really believe in your podcast, and I, wanted to have my little say given the plethora of changes and cuts that have impacted and rocked disability communities this year. And so I'd say to the minister to do it, to come on this show, because you do provide a fair and balanced view. You're not here to just provide one side of um, the story. And so if she has a story to tell, she should front up and she should do it through your podcast.
Thank you.
Love it.
And yeah.
Love it. And completely ruins my next question, which was going to be a really in-depth thing saying, so what's for dinner tonight?
Well, the husband's on dinner duty, so it'll be whatever he decides to cook. He's a pretty good cook, though, so I'm sure it'll be lovely.
That's always a bonus. Definitely a bonus having a
Yeah.
good cook in the house.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, but thank you both truly for the opportunity, and thank you for what you've been doing as well. It's been really interesting to hear different views and different viewpoints over the year. I've only been listening this year, so I'll out myself there. But it can be easy as well. You're taking time out of your schedules to research the issues and to ask the questions. So just a huge thank you as we wrap up for the year.
Thank you. It's really appreciated. We do what we can.
And we will continue to
We
do
all.
it. Thanks for joining us, Priyanka. Just wait there. And thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.